as more, and El Segundo Public Library is doing a living library now since, we are hosting the living library now since 2 years. And the living library means that we invite human books, individuals, to meet, and that these human books, individuals, share their life stories and experiences. This year we had several participants sit down for one-on-one conversations with us. For example, we had here from El Segundo our first woman firefighter chief battalion, or we had people sitting down on a one-on-one conversation with a Catholic worker who is serving those on the margins of society. We do feel that these face-to-face dialogue is very, very important to evoke curiosity, empathy, and also to break stereotypes. We especially hope, we hope that we encourage especially the young people to learn to ask critical questions. Having said that, ESMOR is very thankful for our ongoing collaborations with school, and today we are, now I have to look, we are here with El Segundo High School with Ms. Turner. Ms. Turner, yes, over there, Ms. Turner. Thank you so much for bringing all your students. Thank you for being here. And I also would like to take a moment right now to thank the Museum of Tolerance. The Museum of Tolerance connected us with our guest. It is with great honor and a deep appreciation that I introduce to you today Ms. Engelina Billauer. Thank you so much for coming. Ms. Engelina Billauer is a witness of history, and she is a survivor of the Holocaust. She will share today with us her life story, and she will give today a testimony about Holocaust. We know that learning and understanding history can be sometimes difficult if we only have anonymous, abstract facts. However, we really hope that hearing Ms. Engelina Billauer speak, that history becomes personal, that it becomes a human. And we also hope that it is our hope that it embeds a deeper awareness. We are also very grateful that Ms. Billauer will later allow us to ask some questions. With no further ado, I would like to give the microphone now to Ms. Billauer. Thank you again so much for coming.
I think I'll take it.
You take it.
Good morning. Thank you all for coming. I understand you're all 15 years old. When I was 15 years old, I was already imprisoned. I was born in Berlin, Germany. I don't know how much you know about Holocaust. There are many people who deny it happened, but I can tell you it did. And I'm a witness, and I'm the only survivor of my whole family. I was born in Germany, in Berlin. My parents were handicapped. They couldn't speak and they couldn't hear. They were not born that way, but you know, medicine wasn't that advanced. They had 3 children. We all could hear and speak. I was the youngest, so my older brother and sister would teach me sign language. We lived in an apartment house. We were the only Jews, but we didn't have any problem until 1933, when the famous Adolf Hitler came to power. He made no secret that his plan was to get rid of all Jews. He almost succeeded, but not quite. As soon as he came to power, our problems started. There was a law for anything that we were not allowed to do. When I was 6 years old, I went to public school. I was the only Jewish pupil in my class, and I had to sit in the back of the room. After 2 years, I was thrown out altogether, and I was sent to a Jewish girls' school, which was a 45-minute walk. My mother would take me. By then, we were already not allowed to use public transportation. But one thing was that Hitler always said that Jews have dark hairs and big noses. But we were blonde and blue-eyed, so we could get away with things. When I came, and Hitler opened concentration camps right away. Many, mostly men, all ages, were arrested for no reason and sent to concentration camps. The girls in school always came and told us that members of their families have been arrested. Across from our school was a regular public school. These kids used to call us names, insult us. In the winter, they would cover rocks with snow, throw it at us. And we had to learn to take it. Food shopping was only allowed between 4 and 5 in the afternoon. And they didn't have supermarkets then. So if you were in the store and it was 5 and they didn't serve you, you had to leave or you would be arrested. Things became worse every day. They came with something new. All women had to have the name Sarah. All men had to have the name Israel. They gave us a big ID with a big J in front. You had to carry it with you all the time. We were, of course, not allowed to go to a park, sit on the bench, public transportation. You had to be off the streets by nighttime. Things became more difficult all the time. On October 7, 1938, my brother, who was 9 years older than me, committed suicide because he saw no future for himself. My sister, who was 6 years older, had to work forced labor for Siemens. Every morning they would pick her up, and every afternoon they would bring her back. Things became really more difficult. On November 9th, 1938, I walked to school. I had to go through streets that had Jewish stores. The stores were all damaged. German SS men and women. There were 1 million German women who volunteered for that, had damaged the stores, had thrown out all the merchandise, and screamed, "Don't buy from Jews, we have to get rid of the Jews." On my way to school, I smelled smoke in the air, and we were told that all synagogues in Germany had been set on fire. All religious items and books by Jewish authors were thrown in the street, and everything was set on fire. In 1939, we had to wear the yellow star. That, of course, limited us altogether, even that we didn't look Jewish, but we had to wear the star. And again, they came up with all kinds of laws that we were not allowed to do. In 1940, and then they closed all Jewish schools. In 1940, they started deportations. They came with big moving vans, took whole families, and all these transports were sent to Poland. Now, Poland was always known to be an anti-Semitic country. And all these people that were sent to Poland were killed. But Of course, we didn't realize it then yet. In 1942, on September 24th, 2 Gestapo men came to our apartment, told us to take a few things and come with them. We went down the stairs, neighbors came out, nobody said a word. They took us by public transportation to one of the biggest synagogues in Berlin. The outside was standing, the inside was destroyed. When we arrived, we saw that they had arrested 1,000 people that night. Old people, young people, all ages, babies, invalids, people in wheelchairs, all kinds. When we entered, the SS men and women who were sitting on the stage called my sister and me and said, maybe you have a relative that's not Jewish. And we said, no, we are 100% Jewish. So he sent us in the audience. We were sitting there for 3 days, no food, no water. After 3 days, they took 1,000 people marching through the city of Berlin. The Germans were standing on the sidewalks, clapping, oh, we finally get rid of the Jews. We came to a railway station and we were put on a train. I was 15 years old then. The train left, only the SS and guards with machine guns were on the train. They're the only one that got food or water. We never got anything. We came to a certain point where the grown-ups, my geography wasn't that great, where the grown-ups said, oh, it looks like we are not going to Poland. That might be a better sign. The train continued, and we stopped one day in Riga. Riga is the capital of Latvia. And we knew that there was a ghetto too, so we thought, no, maybe it's not so bad. But the train stopped. They took out 10 men, shot them right on the spot, and the train continued. On October 1st, the train stopped in Estonia, in an empty field. We were chased off the train, and we were told to stand in line. The head were, again, SS men and women, and they would decide, you go right, you go left. We didn't know what it meant, so when it came to us, they told my parents and 800 other people to go to one side, and 200, including us, to the other side. Now, we knew our parents don't understand what's going on, and we saw that they are put on the bus. So, of course, we ran to the bus, and we were sitting on the bus with them. The SS followed us, started screaming, we told you, you have to stay behind to clean the station. And we said, no, we have to be with our parents. And they said, oh, don't worry, you'll meet them. But that's the last time we ever saw our parents and the 800 other people. First, we didn't realize what happened to them, but soon we found out that they killed those people right away. The 200, we had to clean the station. We met 3 other girls. I was always the youngest, my sister was the oldest, and the others were in between. We right away became friendly and decided we stick together whatever happened. We cleaned the station and we were marched quite a way, and the weather was not bad yet, to an open field. And we saw there 2 barracks. Before we entered the barrack, they would take jewelry from all the women. We were only women. There were many women who didn't want to give their wedding bands, So they would put them on the side and shoot them right there. The rest of us, we were led into this barrack. There was nothing there, just a wooden floor, nothing else. So the 3 girls and my sister, we slept together to keep warm. In the morning, they would bring us water and old bread. And then we had to come out and go to the second barrack. The second barrack had the luggage of all the 1,000 people they had arrested. We had to unpack it and assort. Now people had good stuff, they had warm clothes, they had food, but you couldn't steal anything because if they caught you with anything, they would shoot you right on the spot. We worked on that for a couple of weeks, and every morning we were counted, and many times they had selections, and they selected women. We never realized what for, but we soon found out that from the 200 that we were, they selected 100, and they were killed also. After we unpacked all this clothing, one night they just put us on a bus and took us to the capital of Estonia, which is called Tallinn. We landed there at night. We heard we must be near the ocean because we heard the water. And they took us into a real old-fashioned prison. Everything in the dark. We had to go through all kinds of dark hallways and came to another little more modern one, stood in line, and then they would count 10, push you into a room until they had all 110 rooms. Then the lights went on, and we saw we are in a prison cell. 1 toilet, 1 little sink. Against the wall, there were like 7 Murphy beds. So we told the elderly ladies they can have the beds, and 3 younger ones will sleep on the floor. During the night, they would open this little door to check on us, and in the morning, they would bring us raw fish. For you guys, maybe now it's a delicacy. I still don't like that. And we had to make sure the cell is cleaned, and they took us down to a big backyard. And we saw a German civilian. He gave us a speech that he represents a German construction company, that we are going to work for them. We're going to get an extra soup, but if one runs away, 10 will be shot. So they marched us, 100 women, through the city of Tallinn to a shipyard. The shipyard was in bad shape. Probably the Russians and Germans had been fighting there. And German soldiers worked on the shipyard too, because their ships were there. And every morning when they marched in, they would sing, "We are looking forward to the Jewish blood floating. We have to get rid of the Jews." We had to listen to it, but there was nothing we could do. We started cleaning up this shipyard, and when we were almost done, they divided us into groups. Some had to work for divers, some had to clean the streets, some had to cover the snow in the streets, and all we had was just the clothes we were arrested with. We never had medicine, we never had anything, but we learned we had no choice but to go on. We were divided into groups, and our group, and each group was headed by a German. Our group was headed by the only German in all these years that we were in prison who was decent to us. He did things that were dangerous to him, but he did it. After the war, when the State of Israel was declared, we recommended him and he was honored. Unfortunately, he didn't live to see it, but his family did. So we started brick building. First, we had to unload the trains with the cement, with the bricks and all that, and we started bricklaying. We did get an extra soup. After we were almost finished, we didn't let us out of prison again. We never knew what the next step was. And after a few days in prison, they put us again on a train and took us closer to the Russian border. When we arrived there on an empty field, we were again chased off the train and told to march. And we marched to an open field to the first concentration camp. It was already occupied, mostly Eastern European, men and women always separated, the whole camp surrounded by electric wire. If you touched it, you killed yourself. Many people tried. And they had always SS men and women. This commandant would always walk around with a stick. Whoever crossed his way, he was hit. We were sent out to do heavy work, cutting trees in the woods, loading them on sleds, building other railroads. And every night when we came back, we were counted again. And one day, they shaved our heads and gave us rags to wear. The coat they gave us had the Star of David in the back, which would glow at night. And we continued working hard. No food, very little food, mostly potato peels, and always mistreated. Their hobby was to chase the German shepherds to us. Many shepherds killed people. I was bitten by a dog, and I still don't like dogs. And many times when we came back from work, we had to stand around and watch how sometimes they beat a woman and sometimes a man, and we had to watch how they beat them to death. After a couple of months in this camp, they decided they're building another concentration camp nearby. So they took a group, especially us who were the bricklayers, not too far away to a brand new concentration camp. We had to build the chimneys in the barracks and the fireplaces for the SS. And then they brought again other people, mostly Eastern European, German or Czechoslovakian. And again, we worked hard. Every morning we were counted, every night we were counted, we were mistreated. I still can't understand how people can be so mean to mistreat you only because you're Jewish. But we had no choice, we had to take it. But we were always wondering, what is the whole world doing? They must know what's going on. How come they don't bomb anything? But luckily we didn't know that the world really didn't care. And we continued like that for a while. And it became a little more critical for the Germans. So they decided whoever was left, because they always had selections, people sending away. One of the selections, they selected me too. And Germans like round numbers, so they needed more. Of course, my sister volunteered, and the 3 girlfriends volunteered too. But somehow, I guess somebody was watching us after all, took the 5 of us out and put 5 other women, and they were all put to death. By then, Germans only used guns. Later on, I guess it became more expensive for them. So one day then, they gave up their camp and decided to take us back to Germany. They took us back to Tallinn near the ship, but they needed a ship for German soldiers to go, so they just dropped us off on an empty field right next to the ship. Luckily, it didn't rain, it didn't snow, and we were lying on that empty field for 3 weeks. Again, very little food, no blankets or anything. After 3 weeks, they finally had a ship. They loaded us on a ship on the bottom, the Germans on top. Every day, they would come down and look who had died, who they thought was too sick to make the trip. They would take these bodies and throw them into the ocean. Finally, the ship stopped. We were unloaded from the big ship into smaller ships, down the river to another big concentration camp, which was already in existence too. Men and women, of course, always separated. The first thing again, they shaved our heads, and there was again rags to wear, and we had to stand around all day. In the evening, they would push us into a barrack. But the barrack was too small for us to sleep sitting down, so we had to teach ourselves to sleep standing up. Many nights they would come with a pail of cold water, throw it over us and tell us that's your shower. Still wet in the morning, it was already cold outside, we had to stand outside again all day. That went on for a couple of weeks. Then German farmers came, picked some women to work for them, and you never saw any of these women again. Now my sister and the 3 girls, we decided whoever comes and picks a group, we make sure that the 5 of us don't get separated. And finally somebody came and picked a bigger group. We were included, and he was a representative of an ammunition factory in Hamburg, Germany. So again, they took us by train to Hamburg. We knew that there was a big concentration camp there too, but for the factory it wasn't convenient, so they built a smaller one near the factory. And we had to work, and we were only women in the camp. We had to work 12-hour shifts. Many times when we came from a day shift at night, they would make us stand around, run around, do all kinds of things just not to be able to go back to sleep. And of course, they would always give us speeches how the Germans are going to win the war and how they're going to get rid of all the Jews. Then went on for a while, and bombing became harder, but we still had to go to work until bombing became really, really heavy, and they decided they have to give up this camp, and they took us, whoever was left, and decided they're going to take us to another concentration camp. And again, they put us on a train, and we stopped at a railway station, and we saw that they had brought people from all over, from all kinds of camps, men and women, a lot of dead bodies lying on the platform. And they took us women, marching us through some small German towns. The Germans were standing there, nobody said a word. And we saw smoke in the air, and we asked, what is that? And she said, oh, that's where you will end up, because we are going to make soap out of you. So we arrived at the gates of Bergen-Belsen. Now, we had been in many camps, each worse than the other, but you had never seen anything like Bergen-Belsen. Dead bodies lying around, dead people, dead sick people. We didn't realize that there was a typhus disease. That's why so many sick people were lying around. And again, they let us in, and all we had to do was pick up dead bodies and put them into piles. You know, all these times we never had a toilet, we never had a toothbrush, we never had a shower, nothing. We just had to learn to live like that. Things became worse all the time. It was already the end of 1944, and there were more and more sick people. And our job became bigger and bigger because there were more dead people to put into piles. On April 15, 1945, we saw a big truck. We didn't know what it was. It turned out to be the British Army. They were not prepared for what they found. So the first thing they tried to give us was their army ration. Now, people were hungry, grabbed the food, and their stomach couldn't take it. 5,000 people died right there. The British tried their best. They sent organizations, we got clothes, and all kinds of help. And we witnessed how they arrested all the SS men and women, which gave us a big satisfaction. But then the British decided the camp is too infected by disease, they have to burn it down. So whoever was able, they took us not too far away to stone buildings where the SS had lived. And they put us separating us by nationalities. Now, many people went back to the country they came from, but we knew that we would never stay in Germany if we can help it. So they put us into rooms, and we finally had a toilet, we finally had a bath to ourselves. The British tried their best to treat us good. Canadian doctors came, and they decided they go from room to room, and they could take out who was sick. Now, in my room, I was sick and one of my girlfriends. So they took us into an ambulance, gave us a shower, put hospital clothes, and took us to one of the buildings that they had made hospitals. Now, my sister couldn't follow the ambulance, so she had to go from building to building until she found me. But I was too sick, they wouldn't let her in. After 3 weeks, I was a little better, so the girls would push me against the window so my sister could see that I'm still alive. I got a little better. The Swedish government came up with a program to take people to Sweden. But we were afraid they would separate us, which they probably wouldn't have, but we were still afraid of that. So my sister came told the doctors that she's taking me for a walk. She took me out of the hospital, and she took me not too far away where they had opened a displaced person camp. It was full. People from all over came to look for relatives, for friends, for anybody. Now, we knew that we wouldn't find anybody. We lived in this displaced person camp, organizations, everybody came to help. And one day in America, there came a group of people looking too, and among them was a man my sister knew from Berlin. He told us that he and his transport, including his wife and children, were sent from Berlin to Auschwitz. That's the first time we heard about Auschwitz. He told us that his whole transport, including his wife and children, were gassed, but a few young men were taken to a camp near Auschwitz to work for a German factory, the factory that produced the gas for gas chambers. After the war, he sued that company, and he won. Unfortunately, he didn't live to see it, but we all had satisfaction from it. So we lived in this displaced person camp, and we got sick. My sister and him got married in 1947, and we got a little tired of living camp style. And the world, nobody had opened their gates for us yet. We decided we moved to a small town near Hamburg to have a little more normal life. We moved to the small town. The Germans gave us a house that previously was owned by Jews that didn't come back. We lived in this house. They brought furniture. Other survivors came to the small town. We all lived like one big family. We celebrated anything. And we were happy to be liberated, but nobody wanted to stay in Germany. But there was nobody ready yet for us. One day an American soldier came and said, "We are nearby, but we Americans are leaving and the Russians are taking over." And he thought it was better if he brought the busload of survivors to us, to the British zone, because Germany was then divided into British, American, French, and Russian zone. So of course we agreed, and he brought a busload of survivors to us. They all were put up in German homes. We all celebrated freedom. We all were like one big family. Any party, everybody was invited. Among these people that came was a man who later became my father-in-law. He was from Warsaw, Poland. He had a jewelry store. And in September 1st, 1939, when the Germans invaded Poland, they went to his store. They beat him up. They destroyed his store. They stole his jewelry. So he told his 16-year-old boy, "I give you money. You try to save yourself because we don't know what's going to be. Try to run away." So the 16-year-old boy ran away. With difficulties, he landed in Siberia. They didn't kill anybody. They had to work hard, but they got food, and he never knew what happened to the rest of his family. The Russians didn't tell them the war is over until 1946. And somehow he found out that his father had survived and lived in Germany. So he made his way to Germany, to that small town. You know, trains didn't go on schedule. You had to jump on the train. You had to sit on the roof. But he made it to Germany and had a happy reunion with his father. But his father told him that his mother and the other relatives were all killed in the Warsaw ghetto. And he remarried also a survivor woman. So they had a happy reunion. He lived with them. Again, we had parties, we got together. My sister and I always went to visit. And one day, I was 18 when we were liberated, and he was 21. One day he met me, and it clicked. I was very naive, I had no idea. But we started dating, we went to the movies. I never went by myself, I always took somebody along. And we had dances, we always danced. He was a good dancer, I liked to dance. And in 1948, when the State of Israel was declared, they sent official papers for elderly people to immigrate to Israel. Now, his father and his new wife and a lot of people got official papers to move to Israel. Now, the son wanted to go too, but they told him, no, you're young. We don't have that many official papers. You go illegal. So his father said, I don't want you to do that. You went through so much. You wait till you get official papers. So he moved into the house with us. We continued dating. And, and he knew that my sister and her family, their plans were to go to the United States. And he knew that I would never separate, that I would go to the United States too. So in 1949, on June 12th, we got officially engaged. And he said, you know, before we go to the United States, let's go to Israel. Let me see my father and other relatives that came there much before the war. So the end of 49, we flew to Israel. I can't describe you the feeling after you survived the Holocaust, where you were treated like less than dirt. You come to a country that finally there's a Jewish country where everything is Jewish. It's a wonderful feeling. We moved into the apartment with my in-laws. My husband met all his relatives that came before the war. And it was the end of 49, and we had to go back to Germany. My father-in-law came up with the idea, let me make the wedding. And I said, I'm not getting married without my sister. She's the only one I have. And you know, we didn't have telephones or fax machines or anything, but they managed. My sister left her baby with somebody, and she came with her husband and a suitcase full of food and a wedding dress. On February 4th, 1950, we got married in Israel. Our guests were only survivors. Soon after the wedding, we had to go back to Germany. And again, there was nothing yet from the United States. So we decided we go one time back to Berlin. We went to Berlin. We went to the Jewish cemetery where my brother was buried. We had the names of our parents engraved in his stone, so at least their name is somewhere. We went to the apartment house we used to live. My sister refused. I did not. I went up and I saw that the neighbor is still the same. And she knew me since I was born. I rang her bell. She almost fainted when she saw me. I told her what her countrymen did, not only to my parents, but to millions of other Jews. I got that off my chest, and we went back to the small town. And finally, the end of 1950, we got papers for the United States. But we had a problem. I was expecting. And we were afraid we come to a new country, we don't have money, we don't have insurance. So we decided we have the baby in Germany. My son was born on April 27, 1951. And on June 27, 1951, we landed in New York. We came by Army propeller flights that stopped a few times before they landed in New York. Every time we landed, I ran to the kitchen to make a formula for my baby. And when we arrived in New York, I don't know if you know about New York, but in June it's pretty hot and humid. My baby was screaming. Immigration took care of us very fast. Came out of the airport, our friends all were there to welcome us. And they all knew that we have a contract with the Jewish community in Stockton, California. And they said, why do you want to go there? You don't know anybody there. And we thought about it and we thought, they're right. So they took us, one family group took us to live with them in the Bronx on the 4th floor, no air condition, no elevator, but we were new immigrants. To us wasn't no problem. We lived with them for a while, and neighbors, everybody was really very, very nice. And they were looking for an apartment for us. And we finally got one in the same building on the ground floor. One living room and one bedroom, no kitchen. The living room on the wall had a sink, a fridge, and a stove. So we were happy. Everybody again gave us furniture. We were thrilled to live and have a little place for ourselves. My husband got a job as a watchmaker. So, but after a couple of weeks, my sister came with a husband and 2 children. So we all lived in this little apartment. But we, for us immigrants, that's the way you start. My husband got a new job as a watchmaker for a big company. My brother-in-law was told he had studied law in Germany, that he should go now back to school and learn to be an accountant. So the 2 men went to work, and we took care of the 3 children. One day my sister was invited by friends that came before the war, and she came back and she said, oh, they live in Queens in a house with a backyard. And we said, yeah, that's very nice. They came much before us. Eventually we'll get there too, but right now we can't afford it. But again, this American soldier who had always helped us and who was a lawyer by then said that's a very good idea. He organized for us to get a loan, and we got a house in Queens, New York. Our friends all thought we were crazy, because you had to use the subway and a bus to come there. But it didn't take long, and they all came by bus and subway to visit on weekends. We had a nice little backyard. We lived together. Neighbors, again, were outstanding. There was a synagogue, and we started a normal life. By then, my husband had a job for a big watch company in Manhattan. So we had to go to Manhattan, pick up the broken watches. He would fix them, and I would deliver the fixed watches back to Manhattan. by bus and subway. Of course, I got lost on the subway many times, but pretty soon I found my way. So we lived happily. Friends came to visit. Our children grew up, my nephew, niece, and my son grew up. And in 1956, 1957, I had another baby boy. And my husband said, it's time we have a home of our own. So we found a house nearby, and we moved into our own home. We were thrilled. My husband would take care of the babies while I would do the deliveries. Of course, I was always with my sister and her children. We were like one big, happy family. It was really pleasant. My children grew up, went to public school, to junior high school, to high school. My older son finished high school and said, I'd like to take a course at UCLA. And we said, okay. He went to UCLA, came back and said, I like California. I want to go back to school in California. And we said, no, you finish college in New York first. He finished college in New York and got married much too young. And of course, the marriage didn't last, but they moved to California. 1977, my sister died of a rare disease. I had the same problem with my younger son. We also insisted he finish college in New York. In 1978, I drove with him cross country and brought him to California. My older son had finished already, was already a chiropractor, had his office, and my younger son always did what his big brother did. So I delivered him and made sure that he settled, starting chiropractic school, and I had to go back to New York. When I came to New York, we had a letter from both our sons. We are a small family. We should be together. You should know your grandchildren, and your grandchildren should know you. All our friends thought we were crazy, but we thought they're right. We sold our home, we sold our business, and we came cross-country to California. We had a happy reunion, and my husband said, yeah, but now I have to find a job, I have to make a living, and possibly I don't want to be a watchmaker. So our children said, don't worry, we took care of all that. You can be our office manager, and Mom can be the secretary. My husband said, with my English, I have to call insurance companies. They said, don't worry. Insurance companies, their English is not that great, and they will learn. And private patients will learn to understand you. So we became a team with them for 26 years. Each of my sons had 2 sons, all involved in sports. We participated in any sport they were. Luckily, one sport they didn't participate is American football. But the second grandson, 17 years old, before high school, he went surfing. He came up with the idea he wants to be a surfer. We thought, what a crazy sport, but he insisted he wants to be a surfer. One morning, before school, he went to Malibu surfing. He never went by himself, he always took somebody, and a wave hit him. He was floating in the ocean. People thought he was joking until they realized there's something wrong. They fished him out. They took him by helicopter to the hospital. We were all called, and we were told that he broke his neck and he will never walk again. Of course, we were all upset. He was in the hospital, he was in rehab, he had to learn to sit in a wheelchair, he had needed a caregiver, he insisted on finishing high school, he insisted on going to college in San Diego. He came back, and again, surfing. His friends, who were all surfers, said he's nuts, but he bothered them so much that they built a special surfing board for him, where he lies on his stomach with a helmet. They push him out into the ocean and he surfs. And he started an organization which is called Life Rolled On. He's very popular. You can see him on your computer. They made movies about him. He brings people in wheelchairs to the ocean. The volunteers put them on surfboards and push them out. And he became very popular, has a lot of people coming, travels all over the world, and by now he's a champion surfer of handicapped, and he loves it. And people ask him, how can you live like that? You're young. And his answer always is, if my grandmother could survive the Holocaust, I can live like that. But we were all always concerned what's going to be with him. Luckily, about 5 years ago, he met a young woman in the apartment house he lived. They fell in love, and they got married. Now, she must be a special girl. She marries a guy who is paralyzed from the waist down. But they got married. We had a beautiful wedding. We were all thrilled that now he's not alone anymore. My older grandson is married in San Diego, and the two younger ones were still in school. But 6 weeks after Jesse got married, my husband died of cancer. A week after he was buried, I had a stroke. I went to the hospital, to rehab, and back to my apartment. My children decided that I can't live by myself, so they put me into an assisted living in Santa Monica. And they decided that someone up there is watching over me and has a job for me to do. So they brought me to the Museum of Tolerance, and I tell my story there once, sometimes twice a week. I also speak in the other museum in the Grove, and I got very involved in the University of Chapman in Orange County. My children thought that's the best for me, and it was for the time being. I was in that home now for 4 years, and my older son decided he bought a house right next to his son, Jesse, to the one that's paralyzed, and he decided that I should move in with him. So now I live for a week with my older son right next door to my grandson. I see my great-grandchildren every day, and I enjoy doing it. It's nice to be near your family. And I think my time is up, right? Almost. Okay. That's my story. Okay. One thing I want to tell you, that I'm very concerned about the world today. Anti-Semitism is growing all over, and it scares me. I hope that you young people will help to make this world a better world for everyone. And I think that's my advice to you. And remember to honor your parents, because you never know what's going to happen. Okay? Yeah, you're back and I have a soup.
Thank you, Ms. Billauer, for not only being a testimony to the Holocaust, but also for such an inspiring life story. I think I can speak for all, that we will all remember and take away such a positive, wonderful
Yeah, it
love.
really happened. Don't let anybody tell you it never happened.
Yes. I think this would be the time when we would like to ask the El Segundo High School students, Ms. Turner, if the students could come up here to ask their personal questions.
I won't bite you.
No. So please come here.
Yeah, it's better if you come closer. My
Yes.
hearing is not, one of my hearing aids is not working.
Thank you.
Oh, look at that.
Yes. So,
Come on.
Johannes, maybe you can start. Please speak also in the microphone.
Oh, you can come closer.
Yes.
Hi.
Nice to meet you. My name is Johannes. And I was
Johannes?
Yeah.
That's German.
Yeah, my mom's side of the family is German. My question for you would be, how have the events of your childhood affected your life both positively and negatively?
I don't know. I guess I'm very lucky that I'm a very positive person.
Awesome, thank you.
Hi.
My name is Nick. It's nice to meet you. How has your experience shaped the way you look at mankind?
I can hear you.
How has your experience shaped the way you look at mankind?
I try to believe mankind is kind and won't repeat what happened and won't do it to anybody else. And it's up to you, young guys. I give the responsibility to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Elizabeth.
Come and look
Nice
closer.
to meet you.
Yeah.
How did you make it through each day, and what did you tell yourself to keep going?
I don't, we were 5 girls. We were so close, watching each other, and that helped a lot. When one was down, the other one would cheer you up also. And I was always the youngest, so they always tried to cheer me up, because I was crying a lot.
Hi, my name's Carmen. My question is, how are you able to try and recover from such a traumatic time in your life?
It's not easy. It is easy to get back to normal life, but you never lose your memories. I remember anything that was before, but don't ask me what I ate yesterday. That I don't remember.
My name is Sam.
Come a little closer.
Hi, my name is Sam. Nice to meet you. How did you feel when you realized you were free and could control your own life?
I can't hear you.
How did you feel when you realized you were free and could control your own life?
I'm grateful I have a new family. They're all taken care of. I'm lucky that I live to see great-grandchildren. The one in San Diego I don't see that much, But it's nice to be alive, and when my time is up, it's up. And I don't mind that. I'm 92 years old by now. One more.
One more, yes. Hi.
Hi, I'm Chase Woody. Very nice to meet you. My question is, even though there's been many bad things that's happened to you, what's either your happiest moment or the moment where you felt the most inspiration to do something?
The day we were liberated.
Cool, thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I think that was the best question at the end, and your answer saying the day you were liberated.
That's, yeah.
Yeah. Ms. Billauer, is there maybe one last thing you want to let everyone know? Is there maybe one thought one more share you want to say before they go back to school? Like, is there one thing you want to give them on their way?
It really happened. You heard it from an eyewitness. Don't let anybody ever tell you it never happened. Me telling you the story makes you witnesses too. So, and I hope you all go up into a better world.
Thank you.